This is supposed to be the big reveal.
Oh, man.
Nice.
Oh, there we go.
And thank you very much for putting on your best human impression, Mr. Droid, to be with us, Mr. Marty Brenneis, right?
No, Brenneis, like tennis.
Brenneis. As I said, it was Brenneis. Thank you for being here, Mr. Miles.
Hey, my pleasure.
Martin, thank you very much for being here today.
You are welcome.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, Reed.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, because who the fuck knows what a duck coach is, you know? I mean,
Didn't know.
you know, it's crazy.
Now we do, and we're all better for it. Stephen Kravitz, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, honestly, you are the first people that want to talk about Howard the Duck.
How did you dig up Howard the Duck?
They called me and they said, we need your help. And I said, what for? Well, they gave us the green light for Howard the Duck. And I said, what, are you kidding me? Let me show you this. I'm going to go into my file. Literally, this is my Howard the Duck file. And I haven't opened this in years.
I love the idea that you're getting into Howard the Duck. It's such a weird, it has become cult status.
Yeah. If we didn't do it, no one else was going to do this. We're the only people equipped to bring this back up.
Yeah.
You guys really did your homework, too. I got to say, I'm very impressed with all this scratching around you did. It's great.
How did you end up getting the role in Howard the Duck?
You know, I wish I could answer that truthfully, but I have no idea.
But here's a picture that kind of, this is what I did on Howard the Duck, okay? There's me talking to Ed Gale. You see, I got the script in my hand, and I've got the headphones on.
Emilio Estevez ain't got shit on you. You're the real duck coach, all right? I'll tell you that right now.
Thank you.
Well, of course, this was a very, coveted role. First trucker. Many people competed for that.
The only thing I remember, it was a night shoot. And I got to make out with a very pretty girl.
I actually took a pie in the face from the duck. Now, if you're doing comedy and you haven't taken a pie in the face, you really haven't been there yet.
Right.
I was spending a lot of time in LA at that time, and Gloria and Willard became very close friends of mine. And all during the writing of Howard the Duck, it was, I can't believe you're writing a movie of Howard the Duck. I mean, it was just, the idea was just so mind-boggling.
Yeah. I guess the casting people liked me, and I looked like the right type, and so it really wasn't a big deal. They just said, yeah, you're cast, you got the part. And I was like, thrilled.
It was weird because people would come to the set and I got a plenty healthy ego, but I don't need to have it stroked all the time. So like I'd be off in the corner and I'd be doing my thing like this and I'd be talking to these people. So obviously I would say Willard and he would say what? And I would come over I would get everybody's attention if I needed it. So like when the guy from Rolling Stone came, he finally pulled me aside and he said, excuse me, I've got to ask you this question. Who the fuck are you? And I said, well,
I'm the duck coach, bitch.
I should have said that.
Yeah, there you go.
When you are all that you guys do is you're making out. That's like
right.
the beginning and end of your interaction.
Oh, and I slipped it in the tongue. Thank you very much.
There you go. Ew.
My stuff was all in the visual effects world, except on Howard the Duck. On the Duck movie, I actually got to go work in the practical effects world. Initially at ILM, I was given the task of doing the radio control system.
Mm-hmm.
They came to me and said, we want the principal character of this movie to be a radio controlled puppet. And I went, you're knucking futz.
Yes. You played Bender. And this is one of the first humans that Howard encounters. In fact, he's thrust upon you by the goons in the alley.
Wait, that's my date.
Yeah,
that's my date.
Working with Willard and Gloria, these guys, this was sort of a vanity project for them because I think they had written one of the Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So basically, they're like, okay, guys, you can do whatever you want.
Bob McDonald Jr., who was the effects supervisor, he said, great, I need a guy that can program in Z80 microcode direct machine language. And what he hadn't factored in was this in San Francisco with people from Silicon Valley. Hi there, I'm trained, I have an electronics technology degree, and yes, I program Z80 microcontrollers in machine language in my head. What would you like?
It was exciting because this was a George Lucas production.
And they said, no, George is on board as executive producer, and the studio said, yes, but we have to get it ready for Christmas. I think it was 87. So we have 15 months to get this movie made.
All I remember is shooting my scene, basically, and being very anxious because it was my first speaking role. It was my first role, you know what I mean? And I was lucky enough to get a speaking part. I
was able to design a system. I dismantled some RC control systems and repackaged them. So they had inputs, I called it the Duck Master, so they could make custom control thingies that plugged in, and so they could have custom manipulators.
And after about a week or two, I went back to them and I said, guys, listen, you've got puppeteers working over here doing a puppet, and you've got these dwarfs over here that are being fitted for all these suits. You've got these creature makers that are making these mechanisms to make this duck bill move, but you've got nobody playing a character here. And this script has got, I mean, he's in every scene, he's got every funny line, and there's nobody minding the store. And they said, yeah, that's a good point. And I said, so that's what you need. And they said, great, that's what you do.
We were all thinking, when this is a hit, we will have an open career path. So it was pretty exciting.
I go from an exterior shot to an interior shot. And the exterior was shot, I believe, in November. And it was shot in the South of Market neighborhood of San Francisco, which at the time was just warehouses and rundown buildings and light industry. And then the interior was going to be shot later, possibly even a couple months later.
I had about 4 weeks of pre-production, and then I was on every single day of production of that movie.
I was there for a little over 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It was a long shoot.
So by the time the interior shot comes around, the production is kind of, as near as I can tell, like not really in control much anyway. It's not going smoothly.
Over time, and you see what's happening on the set, and you watch the dailies, and it's just like this, you kind of realize, oh my God, this could be like, a real stinker. But you got to get out of bed in the morning. So how do you do that? You got to find something to hang on to. It's sort of like the cliche of actors having to love their characters. You got to find something to pin your coat on with the character, and you got to find something to get you out of bed in the morning. I was prepared for the worst. I really was.
They were pretty insulated in terms of, is this any good?
I want everybody for an hour every other morning in a room together. Why? Well, I don't know. We got to get to know each other. We got to get to know Howard. So I started showing them Honeymooners episodes, Ralph Cramden. And I said, okay, guys, this is Howard the Duck.
I did a system where I could remote the transmitter on a cable and place the transmitter under the set, or they could place the transmitter within, a few meters of the duck, so that there was for sure a good, strong signal. Mm-hmm. And they didn't lose any production time due to radio failures.
We had tremendous technical problems because that was right at the end of the era of practical effects. In fact, while we were shooting at ILM, they were doing what I believe is the first CGI in any major picture, which was the young Sherlock Holmes, that sequence with the stained glass window, which took them like 6 months.
And so I was sent over and switched from ILM to working with production in his team. I actually did way more than the guy he was going to bring up. The guy he was bringing up was a programmer type and not much of an electronics person. And he had this thing called Deagle Duck, which was a programmable pneumatic operated stunt duck. So when Howard falls off the roof and lands in the dumpster, that's the Deagle Duck. And it's flailing as it's going down.
We had hand puppets, close-up puppets. We had dwarves in suits with radio-controlled heads. We had stunt dwarfs. I mean, it was all over the place, but it took a lot of time.
I go into the Mabuhay, and as I walk in, Gloria Katz is coming out. She's walking out, and she has this expression on her face like her life is a wool sweater being slowly unraveled by some nail behind her. She's just like walking through, and she kind of gives me this glance and hustles by. I'm like, All right.
Those of us who were there noticed that there was kind of like, a guy in a rubber suit. I mean, is this really working? Is this concept even accessible? Is it funny? Is it dramatic? Is it sci-fi? What is it?
I think that's the big dilemma with the original, is that there was like a push and pull between the creatives and the suits, where some people wanted to go dark with it and pay honor to the comics, while the suits wanted to make sure they were able to sell toys. And then so we got this weird hybrid of sex jokes.
He smoked cigarettes. You can't fucking sell toys of a duck that smokes cigarettes.
Yeah.
Well, in front of me, probably about 20 feet, there is George Lucas, and I'm guessing the cinematographer or a lighting director, somebody, because George was only like, and you guys would know this better than I do. He was executive producing. He wasn't really supposed to be hands-on with this. This was Willard. This was Willard and Gloria's deal. And so he's on set, and he's talking to some light. Like I said, I don't know who it was, but they're standing there, and George, like, he's, and then this other guy's like, okay, well, they're obviously talking about setting up the shot and then what to do next and whatever. Over to my left, their right, Willard is standing, and he's probably 10 feet away, and he's just standing looking. And as George and this guy, they're talking, what about this? Willard says something. Where he's standing, he says something. And George turns and just gives him this look of death, like I have never seen before. Just stares at him. Willard stands there, and then George turns back to this guy, and they start talking, and then things continue.
He got blamed. He was the fall guy. George Lucas was untouchable, so somebody's got to, shovel the shit, right, or have the shit shoveled on him, and that's Willard.
At that point, I had no experience, so I didn't know what to expect. You know what I mean? I was just told what they wanted from me, and I gave it to them.
So there was kind of an overtone of feeling, as a youngish actor on set. I just, did my job and got all excited and looked at it as a challenge and thought, hey, these guys know what they're doing. I'm just this newbie, let them have at it.
Apparently a lot happens in post-production, and it's going to be all right.
Yeah, exactly.
We were having fun. It was a fun movie. I kind of figured it might not fly as well. Part of the thing I didn't like was how cartoonish the duck. We had a much better duck early on.
I thought they didn't portray Howard the Duck in the light that I'd known him from the comic. I'm a big comic book fan.
It's a character, and so you got actors know characters and know how to play comedy. And we were very limited with how fast we could speak, because it was the speed of that little motor, because all those motors could do is turn one way or the other way, because it's adoptive technology from model airplanes, these little things. So all the mechanisms making the eyeball move had to be reduced from a little motor the size of a matchbox doing this or that.
That man. Yeah, see, our first interaction with Howard the Duck, it came out when we were 3 years old. I think I saw it when I was like 6 or 7. My introduction to Howard the Duck was the film, not the comic. So it holds a special place in our hearts, as far as like, we look back at it fondly.
So, a movie crew arrives at a set, the director and the photographer, they want to go and like block out the scene, and I would go, because it took like an hour or two for Ed Gale to put on the suit, right? And so I'd go and I'd sort of be Howard, and Willard would say, okay, no, so Howard comes running down this staircase, and then he spins around and goes over here. And I'd say, well, that's great, except he can't run, because Ed inside the suit can't see outside. He can only see out the bill when the bill is open.
Now I'm doing the second part where I am being thrust into the club. And
then Ed had a little thing in his ear that the main puppeteer, Tim Rose, was operating the beak. and he was in the next room, and it was all radio control. We had a whole duck unit. We had our own slave cameras, and we had our own communication system, so that Ed was hearing the lines, and he was kind of miming while this was going on. But he was sweating inside that suit, and so the eyeballs would completely fog up, and literally he could only see out of the beak.
My shot, I'm getting Howard. I am being thrust backwards and while holding Howard, and then he gets handed off. Well, there's all these cables lying around. There's all and so we do a rehearsal, and I'm stumbling over my heels.
Can you see this picture?
Yeah.
That's Ed Gale's mouth inside the Howard the Duck.
So we do a take, and they thrust Howard into my hands, and I'm being pushed backwards, and I trip over one of the cables. And my first thought is, save the duck. And I fall back, I'm falling backwards, and I'm hoping I'm gonna land on my butt, but I'm also like, I've got to cushion Howard. And as I'm falling backwards, I look through the mouth of the costume, and I see these huge, terrified eyes staring at me as I'm falling backwards. And it's like, and so I managed to fall really well. I cushion him. He doesn't hit anything. He's okay. And when I hit the ground, these crew members come running over, and they grab Howard, and they go, "Are you okay? You okay? You okay?" And they just leave me lying there, and I'm like, "I'm okay."
So this is a piece of paper dated February 17th, 1986. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of people that screen tested for the voice of Howard the Duck.
Wow.
And some of them were people that I suggested, and we brought them up to the set. And some of them were people that casting people did. I mean, on the first page is people already tested by Lucasfilm. Martin Short, John Biner, Jay Leno, Joe Regal-Buto, Robert Picardo, Robin Williams, Ernie Facilius, Mike Pritchard, Howie Mandel, he was one of my ideas, Kevin Pollak, John Lithgow, another one of my ideas, Chip Zien, Jeff Goldblum, Eugene Levy. And some of these guys like Jeff Goldblum, Jay Leno, and Robin, they came to the set, and I showed them around and showed them all the tricks. And Robin just talks too fast. It just couldn't make it. It just, you know. But in his screen test, he did some improvs, which kind of ended up in the movie, I've got to say.
Really?
Yeah, that line about get ready to eat beak. That's a Robin Williams improv right there. Yeah. So there was one night on the set where it was a really stormy night in San Francisco. And, you know, when it gets rainy and stormy in the Bay Area, it's really rainy and stormy, too. And tensions were rising high because we had the set of Beverly's apartment, her kind of loft, you know. But the trouble was the rain was so loud that the sound crew was picking it up. So we were losing a lot of time. And Willard was getting really hot under the collar, okay? And so, like I said before, we all the duck people had these earwigs, and we could talk to each other. I had a little microphone, you know. I've got pictures of that too. And all of a sudden, I saw Howard, because we would shut Howard down in between takes to save the batteries. So all of a sudden, I saw the face just going like this, and I'm like, what's going on? What is going on back there? And then I heard this voice, oh, Earth to Howard, like this, and it was Robin. Had like found his way onto the set, gone back to where the puppeteers were, and was just like playing. You know, he had the slave camera and he was making the mouth go, and he's like talking into the mic. It's like Wizard of Oz. It's like, you know, somebody stumbling in past the curtain and going, oh, look, I can make the smoke machine work. And I was like, not now, Robin, shut the fuck up, please. We're having a meltdown here. No, not now. You know, because he would drop by, but that was just one of those like, holy shit, if we survive this, you know, we're going to get stripes on our sleeve or something, you know, so.
Wow. Any story that ends with Robin, shut the fuck up.
And he had free reign on the set. He used to come around a lot and stuff, but that night was just like, and as you say, who gets to say shut the fuck up to Robin Williams?
Everett Creech is this old stunt coordinator who's like from westerns and stuff like that. He comes up and he, throws his arm around me. He's like, "Kid, we're gonna have you do some stunt work here. Are you up for that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." You don't say no. You're like, "Yeah, give it to me. I want stunt work." He throws me in with the stunt crew, right? So all these old grizzled stunt performers and coordinators and stuff like that. And while you're waiting with these guys, they're like, "Hey, you want to play liar's poker?" And I was like, "Sure, what's that?" And they're like, "Oh, great. You have any $1 bills on you?" I was like, "Sure, I got a few in my pocket here." So they're teaching me how to play liar's poker. And I keep losing. I'm like, how the fuck? Why am I losing dollar after dollar to these stunt guys? And it turns out it's kind of a thing that they do with newbies. They bring dollars that already have a lot of winning numbers. So they know they have stacked the odds, and they're just waiting for some chump like me to come along and to take me for every single dollar bill I have. That's really a great memory for me, was being initiated by these guys.
Right in the beginning, there's a scene, or there was one of the first days we shot in the museum when they take Howard to the museum, and there's Dr. Chapin is in that, and the guy has a lab coat and it says Dr. Chapin. I forget. I think it may be Tommy Swerdlow's character is Dr. Chapin.
It's nothing. It's nothing. Never mind. Carry on, Dr. Chapin.
And Phil Blumbert, who Tim Robbins' character, that's a mutual friend of Gloria Willard's and mine, a guy named Phil Blumberg, and we're still friends. And they sneak that name into all their movies. In the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, when they're at the table eating the monkey brains, and there's that British colonel, that's Colonel Blumbert.
They built this set, this cafe, and they built it on a gimbal so that they could tilt it. And all of the stuff in the set would rush to one wall, because when the Dark Overlord guy was doing his thing, I'd never been on anything like that before.
And this was, you can see in tape here, it says the Dangler, because the airplane was dangling from here and the cameras were kind of strapped in there, and this was, the Hardys.
But there were a lot of things in there of like crashing the ultralight, modifying a crane truck to put the ultralight out on the end of it. And that was one where the machinist that made the prop, he machined this prop to go on the shaft. And this was one of our high precision machinists. And he didn't understand about occasionally you don't need so much precision. And this thing fit on the shaft very nicely, beautifully, perfectly machined. But when you're holding a 10-kilo thing out and you're reaching out to get it onto the shaft, and it's this tall and the shaft's big around, and it has to be lined up absolutely perfectly to slide on. That's where you realize you don't need that much precision. You want some slop in there, so you can get
Give me a little slack. Give me a little slack there.
That's too well.
But he was eating his own dog food.
Those guys are hot dogs. And the stunt pilot who drove his own helicopter to the set every day, he would do like 360s in the helicopter when he left, eat my dust kind of thing.
One of the people on his crew was somebody that I was like, oh, you're cool, was his dad, Bob McDonald Sr., who was a practical effects guy on one of my all-time favorite films, The Wizard of Oz.
The cafe scene that I was in was actually a Cajun sushi restaurant. And somewhere in my archives, in a plastic box somewhere, I still have the menu from the Howard the Duck Cajun sushi place. It's an obscure little trivia fact, but if you look carefully in that scene, you will see somehow an identification that it's Cajun sushi, which is actually kind of pretty ahead of its time if you think about it.
Then one of the big things I built was the neutron gun. I did the strobe sequence in that, timed with the shutter. Well, one of the things about Howard the Duck, it was one of the very first movies to record the video tap. They had a camera on the viewfinder of the film camera, and so that's called a video tap. And they got this idea of sending that over to a person with some 3/4 inch decks, and they would record that so that then the director could play it back and see on set what the scene was like.
Nice.
Well,
Yeah,
what that got was the viewfinder stuff. And so the first time they fire off the neutron disintegrator gun, they look at the video back and they don't see any strobes in it. And they come to me all panicked. And I'm like, cool, that means it worked. Huh?
That's awesome.
Willard's hanging in there, and he's still living. I mean, Gloria left us about 1.5 years ago, and Willard sold his house and moved into an apartment in Beverly Hills. He's got a new girlfriend, and he's writing. He keeps writing, you know, and I think he's more at home as a writer than he is with on a set. And when you get to know him, and then you see like in American Graffiti, there's a moment where Charlie Martin Smith, somebody, and he's like bullshitting this girl, and he goes, hunting, yeah, I'm going hunting this weekend. And he goes, hunting? You mean you're like killing defenseless animals? And he's nonplussed. He goes, well, bears. I mean, I thought bears would be okay. You know, that is so Willard Hike, you know. And when he lets the fart rip in the car and somebody goes, ooh, cut the cheese, that is so Willard Hike. And if you know him, you see those moments, you know. But that's, you know, it's like with any writer, especially a comedy writer, you know, when you get to know the personality, it's like, well, you see
signature.
them. Yeah,
you could see it.
Well, I think my favorite part was falling backwards with the human in the Howard costume.
I had fun working on it because I did pneumatic doors, I did hydraulics, I worked on the hydraulic system for the thing where he goes flying through all the walls.
For me, the experience of being in the Bay Area for 9 months and getting paid enough money that on the day off I had a week, I could basically, you know, go to any restaurant I wanted and pick up the check for 6 people, you know, and get my car fixed was just like brilliant.
And wound up scuba diving as a rescue diver in the Fireman's Fund fountain when we crashed the ultralight.
Well, I mean, it was really an amazing experience for me.
I spent 6 weeks in the submarine bay in Hunters Point tying up Leah Thompson. It was freezing in there. It was 32 degrees.
This is me on the second unit, me and Tom Wright, who was the second unit director. Okay, this is the cast and crew photograph. This is Duck World, the miniature Duck World in the opening. But this is the
Quack.
me and Ed, you know, there we are in the doctor's office.
So good.
You know,
man.
here I am hiding in the shadows with my little microphone, you know, trying to stay out of the way.
Yeah.
Here's me and Howard, and that's Willard. And we're at the Kitty Land, which I think is where they find the airplane, which was in the lower Napa Valley down in Carneros. Oh, here's me and Willard just kind of laughing and scratching together.
It was just such a weird thing to do, you know, was be involved in this thing with this guy in a duck suit.
It was real quick. It was an experience that was fulfilling.
There is a shit ton of money spent on movies, on making films. And it doesn't matter if it's a piece of crap movie or it's a magnificently realized piece of art. The money that goes into it means that everybody who's there is doing their level professional best. They're bringing their A game, and it doesn't matter. So if you're making a movie, you don't waste anybody's time. You don't waste anybody's money. It's not an option for you. And I think that's the biggest lesson as a movie actor that you can bring to the set.
Howard the Duck got mixed reviews. Some loathed it, and actually some loved it. When you saw it for the first time, what was your reaction?
I didn't care for it.
This is the first review that I saw in a San Francisco paper, okay, the date book. This is a Gerald Nachman at the movies. It's also the only review that mentions me. So I have that in here. It says I'm someone credited as the duck coach, and then in parentheses it says Miles Chapin, who did a yeoman job.
I noticed in the questions you sent me, you know, I was in Leonard Part 6. So if I had been in Ishtar, I would have had a trifecta of the 3 worst movies of that era. So I was that close to nailing it.
And then my brother Ted came to see it at a screening, and I think it was when that Jeffrey's character, the tongue comes out and goes into the light socket, and my brother turned to me and he said, "My daughter is not going to see this movie." And I thought, okay, this is something here.
There were parts I liked, but it did not capture the spirit of the comic book, because the comic book, you know, as you know, Howard is very acerbic and he's just dealing with stuff. As the theme goes, he's trapped in a world he never made. So he's just dealing.
Because the character in the comic book is so cool, and I don't think we did full justice to it. And it's a great character, but you need something. You need CGI. I mean, CGI can do it because that duck's got to be propulsive. He's got to propel every single scene. He's got to be explosive. He's got to be hilarious. And you know, I don't think we fulfilled the prophecy. You know, I mean, I don't think we didn't do it.
How did it feel to see Howard the Screen get his respect paid in Avengers Endgame?
Yeah, how about that, huh? He had a little cameo there.
Just a little cameo. I was like, I rewatched that scene 30 times. Like, look at little Howard. After all these years, he finally made it.
That was a great cameo for him. That was
great cameo.
That set up the stage for them to do a reboot of Howard the Duck.
Yes.
Now that, you know, CGI has advanced so much, obviously do CGI.
If I was to remake Howard the Duck, I would make it grittier. I would make it darker.
Make him look more like the comic book character. You know, get somebody there who really understands what the writer was going for, that he's, you know, he's acerbic, he's confused, he's completely out of his element. He wants to get back home, but you know, somehow he's thrust to all these adventures. I mean, I remember one of them was Hell Cow, the vampire cow that he had to deal with. So focus more on, you know, really, you know, getting his character and what he's going through, and give him an edge, because he was an edgy character, and I think the other Marvel characters would have a great time with him.
Well, no, I mean, we'll see where this goes. There's this crazy Howard the Duck energy right now. It's funny because when the principal photography ended, it was midsummer, and I went to Martha's Vineyard with some friends. And Martha's Vineyard, it was like a pretty high-powered party I was in at Martha's Vineyard. There's, you know, a lot of, you know, I don't need to tell you who goes to, I mean, Barack Obama's there now, right? So I'm telling stories. People said, well, you know, where have you been? In California, working on Howard the Duck like this. And I started telling these stories, and it was like everybody was, oh my God. And one of the editors of Time magazine came over and he said, listen, would you like to write this for the magazine? And I said, well, no, I don't really think. And then somebody else came over and he said, you know, I'm at Random House. Would you like a book deal? Because we'd like to hear about it. And I said, like, guys, if I write this book, I'll never work in Hollywood again. I'll burn every bridge, you know, because I was fresh off of it and just like, you know, I really needed to shake it off because it was a very intense experience, you know, and then having it be as much of a stinker as it was. I mean, look at my movie career never really sort of, Milos was the only person who kind of would hire me after that, you know, and it was funny. That was when I began to write, and I mean, that was why I started writing, was I wanted to take more control of my own creative life a little bit, you know, so, you know, it's just funny. It's just the path that people's careers go in, you know.
Thank you again,
Marty. It's been a pleasure.
You've done so many amazing things, and hopefully our paths will cross again. We would love to talk to you for another hour and a half.
If you're ever in the Santa Fe area, let me know, and I can show you the studio. I live here.
Now we know. He said it now.
Fantastic.
We're gonna go.
We'll see you tomorrow, Marty.
Yes, Miles, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking time. Like the stories. Listen, I will never let anybody talk bad about Duck Coach for the rest of my life. You are the Duck.
Many people talking bad about Duck Coach?
No, but they won't be. Okay. Not on my watch.
Hey, thank you guys. I really had a good time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. Be safe and peace and love to your family. Thank you.
Thanks. You too.
Have a good rest of your weekend.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much again, Chuck. Be safe out there. If you need anything, let us know. We'll be talking to you soon, okay?
Cool. Will do. Take care, guys.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Have a fabulous weekend and continued success with the podcast.
Thank you.
I think it's gonna continue to be big fun. I think that you've hit on something here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right.
All the best, sir. Have a good weekend.
You too. Take care.